Welcome to Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast. Welcome to another edition of Real Estate of Mind. I'm Andy Gutman on behalf of the Farbman Group and NAI Farbman, and I have the pleasure today of speaking with Paul Glantz, chairman of Emagine Theaters and entrepreneur extraordinaire. Welcome to the show, Paul. Paul, thanks for joining us today. We are so honored to have you here, and I know it's a time when you're busy gearing up for reopening theaters. We're so grateful to have you on the show today, and I've had the good fortune of knowing you pre-theater days and the great businessman that you are and the great entrepreneur that you are. But for those out there who know you as the Emagine Theater chairman, I think they'd love to hear more about who you are. Would you mind telling us?
Not at all. And so first and foremost, thank you so much for that wonderful introduction, and thank you for your gracious comments. I'm, I guess above all, the guy who pulls on his pants the same way everybody else does. I come from pretty humble roots. My dad was a Trans-Mix truck driver. My mom was a lab technician. My mom worked before most moms worked. But I was never deprived of anything. I was an only child, which was a really good program. I'd recommend it to anyone. For some reason, so notwithstanding the fact that, I'm a first-generation college graduate, I never knew that I had an option in my life but to go to college. And for many years, my mom would tell people that Paulie was going to go to Harvard. Well, that didn't quite work out, but I earned a scholarship because of my high school grades to attend Wayne State University. And I studied accounting there. I met my future wife there. We were both privileged to earn what was then known as a merit scholarship, today the Presidential Scholarship. And so we both have soft spots in our heart, of course, for Wayne State University. And Wayne State and that education was a stepping stone to a better life for us. The training and the education I enjoyed prepared me, along with some early training in public accounting and banking. It made me probably the rounded guy I am today relative to understanding lots of different realms of commerce. And so in the mid-90s, I had a partner, and he and I had both been practicing public accounting together at one of the big firms. And we were budding entrepreneurs. We were convinced as young CPAs that we knew everything there was to know about business. There was just one minor problem. We didn't have two nickels to rub together. And so the source of capital to get into the movie industry was $50,000 that we borrowed on our credit cards and $75,000 we borrowed from America Bank. And so apparently leverage has not concerned me over the years. Here's a guy who didn't have any equity to begin with. And after this COVID episode, I might be back there again. I'm returning to my roots, Andy.
Many people are.
And so, I'm just the luckiest guy on earth. I've had the good fortune of serving our guests and working with wonderful investors and bankers and, folks who have been, really highly supportive of my career. And so it's been a great run. I've been very, very fortunate.
Oh, that's great. And I thank you for sharing that with all of our listeners. Paul, so obviously no one saw COVID coming, and many businesses have been hit hard. Theaters have been shut down for some time. And so, I think what I'm interested in knowing is how you've weathered the storm the last several months and lessons learned, and just tell us how it's been for, since the shutdown.
It's been painful. I would be lying to tell you otherwise. We were very fortunate, Andy, in that we went into this with a good balance sheet, plenty of cash on our balance sheet, And boy, did it come in handy because, the nature of our business is one in which we have a lot of fixed costs, predominantly associated with our occupancy, with the buildings we occupy. And, you're acutely familiar with property taxes, utilities, things of that nature. And occupancy carries on, whether there's someone in the building or there isn't. And so we went into it in good shape. We weathered it quite well. We were very fortunate to get a PPP loan. Now, of course, we need to bring back some payroll so we can work it off.
Right.
But probably the most important component to our continued runway, is what I would call it, is that we have an outstanding relationship with Huntington Bank. And we've got the hardest working loan officer in the country in Kim Burnett up in Flint. And Kim was committed to ensuring that Emagine would have the runway to get into next year. And so we were the second client of Huntington Bank to enjoy a loan that was provided for in the CARES Act, but been very scarcely used, called a Main Street loan. And so that Main Street loan closed just at the end of September. And, I've joked that we're restructuring our balance sheet to replace equity with debt, of course, without any distributions to anyone. But cash is king. It's the lifeblood of business. And so first and foremost, we have to maintain liquidity. And this additional liquidity will enable us to meet and address all of our fixed cost requirements through the end of the year and into the first quarter as well.
Oh, that's great. And, I think you are the first person I've talked to who's received a Main Street loan. There were a lot of people, I think, who applied or, have been trying to figure out how to get one. But congratulations on that. And a nice statement about a great bank, Huntington Bank, that while not providing a commercial for them, we've also had a great experience. They are truly relationship managers, and that's refreshing in this day and age.
I absolutely agree with you. We've got two other banks involved in our credit who cooperated a little bit, who have been able to, show some forbearance and so forth. But at the end of the day, it was Huntington that really stepped up and said, look, we think you guys are a business worth preserving. And to be candid with you, Andy, if but for that, I would have been back on my hands and knees with my investors begging for them to save us.
Yeah.
But that wasn't required because of their largesse.
That's a great thing. You also hit on a couple other points that hit close to home for those of us in the real estate business, and it's that occupancy, still continues, even if business, may not be thriving under it. And that's something that we've seen, and it's been overall a really big relationship booster. As tough as COVID has been, lenders have worked with borrowers, landlords have worked with tenants. We all have been paying what we can, and that's been refreshing because again, no one here caused COVID to occur. It's not something that it wasn't bad business on anyone's part. So it's been refreshing seeing everybody come together and say, here's what I can do, what can you do? And I said the other day in a conversation I had with a group of young entrepreneurs that, I really believe that those relationships we forged and strengthened during COVID will take us far into the future. And as tough as it's been, we'll come out stronger collectively.
I couldn't agree more. And if you ask me, if you did, what did you learn from this? In these challenging times, you learn who are your friends, and and they're not just friends because they're your buddies with them, but they're they genuinely care about and they want your business, your well-being. They want to see you get to the other side, and we have enjoyed a good bit of shared sacrifice with many, I should say, of our stakeholders, and so that's been highly gratifying.
Oh, that's great. Thank you. Well, Paul, very exciting to know that this Friday, I believe, the theaters reopen. Is that accurate?
Yes, October 9th is a key day for us.
And that's exciting for all of us here. I was talking to our head of construction the other day, and how much we miss going to the theater. So, I know for all of us here at Farbman, we're big theater fans. We love the whole experience. I want to talk to you about what the reopening looks like, and hear from you. How will customers get comfortable coming back, knowing that there's safety protocols and all that goes into it? Can you tell us a little bit about what that new experience will be like?
Sure. Other than the fact that we're all wearing masks and so forth, except when we're enjoying our snacks and drinks, I don't think it's going to look a lot different. We have staked out and put stickers on the floor to recommend social distancing guidelines. We have installed some additional plexiglass barriers and so forth. We expect most of our guests to gravitate to touchless purchasing with buying tickets online, and in the very near future, we're going to be offering the opportunity to buy your food and beverage off of our app as well. And then once you get in the auditorium, that'll probably be where you'll see the biggest change. We've got directional signage, trying to keep people from running into each other. So we're trying to direct folks in one traffic flow. But we're going to create 2 vacant recliners between unrelated parties. So I took a measuring tape last Saturday and checked it out, and it turns out that if we have 2 vacant recliners between unrelated parties, we've created 7 feet of distance between folks left and right. And then, of course, we have 7 feet of row spacing because we need that much to be able to get past someone whose feet are elevated. And so we think we're creating the social distancing in our auditoriums in a fashion that no one will feel crowded. We're going to be spacing out shows a little longer, so we've got adequate time to clean and sanitize. But otherwise, I'm hoping that it looks very familiar.
I think that's great, and I think people will appreciate the added measures you're putting in place and the fact that they won't be too cumbersome on people, and it'll feel like the movie experience that we all know and love. So that's a wonderful thing.
I think it's important because, honestly, movies are about a couple hours of escapism. We turn off our smartphones, we sit back, relax, and, be taken away to another world. And that's, I don't want to lose that. I think that's really the core experience that we're offering our guests. And so to deviate from that or make people feel uncomfortable would be contrary to our wishes. I don't expect business is going to bounce back in any type of V curve. I think we will have early adopters, perhaps like you and Leslie, that love the movies, and you and your friends are going to come back rapidly. I think there will be some who are later adopters, folks who are a little more cautious, some who perhaps are more concerned about the continued prevalence of the virus than others. And so that combined with a bit of a weak lineup of Hollywood films will probably give us a lot of time to try to figure out and optimize just how to serve our guests in this new environment going forward. But all in all, the most important thing to us, of course, is that we get open. Something we've been really aspiring to since May, because once we get open, then we can demonstrate constructively to our guests that they are in a safe environment and that their safety and well-being is our foremost objective.
And Paul, I know you're a big advocate for reopening early in May, and one of the things that I think has been challenging for all leaders, is running real estate companies, running the state, is trying to figure out what's safe and what's not. And I give credit to everyone who's held those discussions about what's right and what doesn't work. Sometimes, what's approved to reopen and what hasn't has left us scratching our heads. But at the same time, I know as a leader, this is all new. And so I really do believe everyone's been trying to do the right thing where they can. But having you as a loud voice for reopening this industry and getting things back to as much of a norm as you can, I think has been very much appreciated by other leaders in the community. So I want to thank you for your vocal leadership during this time.
Well, thank you, Andy. I appreciate that. Concurrently, I apparently didn't do a very good job because our industry is among the last to reopen. So
Well,
I'm not going to take much credit for that. But I will tell you that, I don't question the motivations or the goals of any of our public officials in terms of trying to protect public health. That certainly is, a universally held value. I just think that perhaps there are differences of opinion about whether or not business is capable of looking out for its own interest and its customers, as opposed to requiring the regulation of government to establish what folks are comfortable with. Ultimately, I'm a big believer in market forces. And I think that if folks don't feel safe, they won't come. If they do feel safe, they will come. And that's why, again, I'm most delighted that we can reopen and begin to demonstrate that we can operate safely, so that folks will regain confidence in the fact that this virus is mutating. It's being treated much earlier, and that the mortality rate from it is dropped precipitously.
Absolutely. While we're talking about theaters, I wouldn't mind discussing, recently you've seen some news on Regal Theaters that they're considering closing their theaters around the country. I'm wondering if you can address that and talk to how that affects the industry and what effects it has on, Michigan or the Midwest.
Well, Regal, Cinemark, and AMC are fortunate that they can access, the public equity markets to sustain themselves. Middle market companies don't have that privilege, and so Regal, I think, has the option of closing and simply waiting for Hollywood to release films. What most people don't realize is that the release calendar took a turn for the worse when United Artists decided to take the James Bond film that was scheduled for Thanksgiving and move it into April of 2021.
Mm.
That's really what dictated Regal's announcement that they were intending to close their theaters in the U.S. and in the U.K. So we've got this release schedule that many won't find to be particularly compelling. We're going to be showing classic films. We're going to be showing smaller, wide release films. But the blockbusters are all being held back by the studios. And again, I can't say I blame them, because there's two major markets, New York, the state of New York, and Los Angeles County remain closed at this point in time. And if you've got a $200 to $400 million film, you want that film to be optimized and to achieve box office success. And without those two major markets, it's pretty difficult to do so. So I never thought that the fate of our industry would rest with the governor of New York. But at this point, I would say that's almost fate.
Yeah, there's a lot that rests in that governor's hands right now. Paul, one of the things that I want to mention to you, we're, as I said, Farbman Group, we're big fans of you, your Emagine Theaters, and the movie world in general, and we really want to be a part of helping, the reopening of your theater. So we have purchased gift cards for 20 of our employees and their families, so that when you reopen this Friday, you'll see some Farbman familiar faces that hopefully will be finding their way to a movie and some snacks and the whole experiential thing that you do. Just our small way of saying thank you and being supportive of what you're doing. But we're excited to see that reopening and be a part of it.
Well, thank you, Andy. It's very generous of you and the entire Farbman Group. I'm honored and delighted and extraordinarily grateful for your support. We're going to need folks to come back. We're going to need to rally the troops here and see if those folks who like Emagine can show us love like you are, because our ability to sustain ourselves without revenue or nominal revenue is limited, of course, in duration. But I remain optimistic. I think that we will overcome this circumstance, and that we'll be back on the road to health in early 2021. And the interesting thing is, Andy, that while we're back on our heels as an industry, it also presents opportunities, and we may be making some announcements in the future about that as well.
Well, we wait excitedly for that announcement, and of course, anytime you want to come back on our podcast and make those announcements, you let us know. We'd love to be the one to break the news. But more than that, we really wish you continued success. I really appreciate you coming on the Farbman Real Estate of Mind podcast, and look forward to hearing of all your successes in the future to reopen. Thanks so much, Paul. Thank you once again for tuning in today. This is Andy Gutman on behalf of Farbman Group and NAI Farbman. I've been speaking today with Paul Glantz, chairman of Emagine Theaters. Paul, thanks so much for being here again. Really enjoyed talking to you. For everyone out there, go to the theaters. They're opening up again this Friday, especially the Emagine Theater. Go enjoy what we were all meant to enjoy, a movie, time with friends and family. Have a great day. We'll see you soon again on Real Estate of Mind.
Join us next time for another wonderful edition of Real Estate of Mind, a Farbman Group podcast.